All right, everyone. We have checked the moon to see what everyone's mood is, and the moon's in Virgo, so there's a lot of Virgos hanging
So
around
we'll be precise here.
here. Yeah, right. Well, luckily, Ricky's got a Virgo rising to match your Pluto and Virgo. Um,
Ooh,
I have
excellent.
I have no Virgo, so I don't care.
I
All right.
have Uranus in Virgo, and the moon is hitting it right now.
Dang. Well, we're ready for some surprises. Ricky and I have Mars squaring our Uranuses right now, so it's just chaotic right here. Um,
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so Jay Z wanted to come on to talk to you, Ricky,
Mhm.
about some stuff. So I've let him into the room to get at you.
Oh, good.
Are we ready? Are you ready, Ricky?
I am. Yeah.
Do you know what you're ready for?
Whatever you're about to say. Yeah.
Nice, sweet,
Mm.
awesome. I don't know what I'm about to say because, like I said, the moon is hitting my Uranus
Oh,
in
good.
Virgo, so it could be anything.
Oh, good.
And okay. So wait, I want to say, I was watching the episode a couple weeks ago with you and Fern,
Mhm.
and first off, that was my favorite episode so far.
Oh, good.
I have not seen all of the episodes. I saw like from the beginning. I watched like every single one of them, but then like life got in my way, and I haven't watched every single one since then. But all the ones I've seen, that was my favorite so far because I liked at the beginning when you guys were talking about that you have a Cancer moon, and then the whole thing about like whether you have to walk on eggshells around people with Cancer moons or not. Uh, that's interesting to me because I also have a Cancer moon, and I could. I heard what you were saying kind of about that and just trying to think about it in my own character. I liked what happened at the beginning when you were questioning the assumptions, right? Like when I was watching that episode, I saw Fern started to talk about what she wanted to talk about, and you started like fidgeting and looking around, and like you had energy that was moving in various ways, and then you're like, wait, you've like made some assumptions here that we can't have a conversation if we have different assumptions.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. So what I wanted to ask you about today was whenever I talk to people who
Wait, let me rephrase that.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can't have a conversation unless we acknowledge that we have different assumptions.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because we can have a conversation with different assumptions. Everyone's doing that all the time, but when we assume that we're assuming the same things, we're not really communicating.
Yeah. You know, I heard this thing that said conversation is only true communication is only possible between peers. Do you think that's true?
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And it's not true.
If someone had Mercury in the seventh house, I
Mhm.
would say it's more true for them, but I don't think it's a universal truth. No.
Well, I mean, you can have a conversation with your child, and that you can have a true communication.
Exactly.
Well, I guess the point was more like people always have their agenda, and like if you're the boss or the employee can't always speak their mind.
Well, you
Maybe
just
that's
said
interesting anyway.
so you just began saying people always have their agenda, but that's a belief that you have, an assumption that you make that I don't necessarily share.
Ooh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
Okay, I'm going to talk about something linguistic we do. I know this from sign language interpreting. Okay, so when we send over a picture in our
Mhm.
mind, I send over a picture. I'll say like, okay, let's say I think the world is in shambles right now. Linguistically, you actually have to look in the other person's eyes to get a confirmation before going forward. We do this in sign language all the time. Okay, so is the world in shambles? Look in the eyes. If there's a nod, then we go forward with, okay, building on that, blah blah blah. But if we, that's where I feel like with assumptions, when you send over an, I guess, an idea like that, that's idea with an opinion behind it. You kind of want to wait for the partner to nod or disagree before going forward.
Mhm. Yes, that's beautifully put. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think maybe that was part of the disconnect in when somebody speaks a really long thing and they're not checking in with the other person that they're talking to, then it's not real communication.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. So again, it's beautiful. What I was attempting to communicate to Fern was that she was preaching, okay? And so someone that has strong Jupiter, strong Sagittarius in their chart, they are preachers, right? And I thought I was making light of it, but it really triggered her defenses. As I was saying, back in the olden days, someone who had strong Jupiter or Sagittarius, they'd be wearing a collar or they'd be wearing something that indicates that what they are speaking from is based on a belief system. Okay, we don't have that anymore. And so the suggestion to people who have, and I've learned this from my own personal experiences, to be clear that this is my belief system and I don't have an expectation or even a desire for you to necessarily share the same belief system. For me, I can't help but have a built-in respect for people to be able to be allowed to believe whatever they want to believe, right? And so I sometimes I come to the rescue or to the fight when I see that's being violated.
You know, it's interesting because like I always think of it as like intellectual alphas or intellectual submissives, and it's like for example, when someone preaches to me, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like I'm like an intellectual alpha. I'm just like, and I agree with 25% of that, and the other 75% I don't agree with. I'm just like, whatever, core to the maximum time. I mean, I don't know, like I think, but I like that about you, Ricky, is that you're not an intellectual sub. You know, you're an alpha, and I appreciate. I'm an alpha who appreciates alphas. You know, and I think when there's a preaching text, let's call it a text. Like Fern didn't do anything wrong with her presentation. That was just what the text was. Let's say when there's that kind of text, I think it puts a listener in the role of just like being a sub and being like, yeah, 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 yeah. Or they have to then say, I don't agree with this text or parts of this text, and then that should be. I mean, then we have to see what goes on from there. I mean,
Yeah, and it started to go on from there. But we couldn't get past the rebuff, you know.
yeah. But Jay Z, you didn't necessarily. Did you want to come to talk about the Fern Show, or did you want to talk about evolution?
No. I don't think we need to recap the show. I guess I was just leading in on that because, yeah, getting to evolutionary astrology. Ricky, I know you know a lot about it, or is that true? Do you know about evolutionary astrology? Is that your thing?
When you say it, I don't know if there's an it that I would say is evolutionary astrology. For me, evolutionary astrology means viewing astrology with some connection to that astrology is related to evolution. And to me, there's different types of evolution. There's physical evolution. There's mental, spiritual evolution. So any kind of astrology that, I like, for instance, the kind of astrology that Andrea practices, I consider that evolutionary astrology because it's astrology that recognizes a process of becoming or of evolution. So it's, for me, I think of it more as a general term. As far as more of a technical term, there's kind of two branches. There's one that's kind of Stephen Forrest, and there's one that's Jeffrey Wolf Green, and they taught together at some. So I do, and I've read both of them, so I understand the techniques and the ideas when people say evolutionary astrology. Is that I understand both, but what I practice is more of a general kind of evolutionary astrology.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess what usually happens when I talk to people who are trained in evolutionary astrology is I feel they make a lot of assumptions that trigger me to be like, well, now you lost me because I don't believe that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was wondering how you feel personally about this evolution thing with regards to, like, people make these assumptions about reincarnation or past lives, and they say things like, well, in a past life, this or that, or this is because of a past life or whatever. And like, I can't get past that.
You shouldn't be. Right, that's the whole point. You shouldn't. If someone is saying something that doesn't vibe with the way you believe, then there is no communication going on.
I'm super curious about the belief thing, because I know that was one of the points of contention. Is you were making the point that furniture said "I believe" and then go on. So, like, I guess there are factual things like in astrology, like we'd say Mars is at home in Aries and Scorpio. Is that a belief or is that a fact to you guys?
That's a conversation to me.
Because, like, are there facts in astrology, for example? We could call it a technical philosophy. I mean, it's irrefutable as such, but let's say it's a technical philosophy. Are there technical parts of astrology that are not necessarily belief based, that are just knowns or facts?
I don't think that as humans we can say that anything is not belief based.
Well, okay. What if you have a gangrenous foot?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like, do you believe you have a gangrenous foot, or do you factually have a gangrenous foot?
Well, when I say belief, is how does someone make meaning of that experience? Because it's too much of an abstraction to take a fact out of the context of being human. Because we have to view everything in the context of being human. So I think it's a fact. If you I'd say there are psychological facts that astrology can make us privy to. But that's why I say when we say that Mars is at home in Aries and Scorpio, that's a conversation that gives us access to psychological facts that are useful in our lives because of this cohesive system that we've spent the time to internalize.
Interesting. Okay, would we agree that a fact is like Mars is 2,345,000 miles from the sun?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But it's still a belief system and a unit of measurement. So I'm just making that state. But yes, that allows us to have facts. Yes.
Yeah, maybe this is something about like the scientific method, and then we have to come up with, like, maybe we do have to come up with agreements, and maybe they're not assumptions, but rather like like in a mathematical thing, you have to first define your terms.
Yes.
So
exactly.
We have to define terms and agree to certain kind of ground rules in order to have conversations.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
So if I was in Stephen Forrest school, like, I might have to like accept the assumption that reincarnation exists.
No,
before going
no. That's a belief system that someone brings in. In Stephen's school, he clearly states, this is my belief system. You don't have to ascribe to it, but the common ground is if you agree that when someone is born, that doesn't just come out of somewhere, that there is some past that has led to the present. He says how you get there, how you come up with that idea, he says that's up to you, but that is the common ground, that we don't just poof come out of nowhere, that there is something that happened previously that led to the current moment. That's the belief that you have to be an evolutionary astrologer. Is a belief in evolution, that there is a before, there's a current that's leading to something that's going and going and going, and that there's a trajectory that has an evolutionary bent to it, meaning it's moving upwards towards something.
So, Jay Z, you initially wanted to take issue with the fact that Ricky believed evolution was part of the astrology because you seem to not think that that we are here to evolve. Is that true?
Yeah, whatever what Ricky just said about like there's a core belief that you have to believe that something happened to lead to what is happening now, which is going to lead to what happens in the future. I disagree.
Perfect.
So I wouldn't be able to subscribe to a system where the belief in that premise is necessary.
So what I sense is a defense against a premise. It's not about a resolution.
What do you mean?
So a defense against a premise is that you have already some other decision about how things work. So to me, like you don't have to lay down someone else's belief, especially if you can offer an answer or a resolution that makes more sense to you. Then it's not about refuting anything. It's about you sharing the way that you see it.
Well, there's this book I read called Everything. Well, I didn't read it. It was my daughter's like rhetoric book from her English class, but it was called Everything's an Argument. And like they learn this in college, right? Like you have to make your argument, whatever it is. And it's like, I mean, I think this is a very amorphous episode so far, which is fine. But I think it's because we're trying to figure out kind of what caused the contention with Fern and what's a belief and what's a premise and what's it's like we're coming in saying like, well, I don't know. So it's like, I guess all of astrology. Okay, I have one with astrology, which is solar return charts. People just assume ubiquitously in astrology that you can freeze the chart on a solar return and charge people money to predict a new whole chart for them, which I take great issue with. I'm like, you just ruin the teleological function of the natal chart by making a new birth chart. That bothers me.
But see, that's a conversation. Like to me, if you said that to me, I'd say, wow, that's a really good point. And my attachment to solar returns would disappear instantaneously. That's why I'm saying it's not about holding on or defending a belief system. To me, it's about seeing more clearly. And if this framework has allowed me to see more clearly, and someone can show me one that allows me to see even more clearly, I'm dumping the one that I have right now, and I'm taking on the new one instantaneously. And again, it's easy for me to do that as a 9th house Gemini sun with Jupiter there. That's the way it works. And to me, when someone's not willing to allow that process to occur, then I'm wasting my time. So I don't care about defending belief systems. I'm saying, show me a better way to see it, please. Please.
So you're fine if somebody says, I believe X, Y, and Z, but you want to have the freedom to either agree or not agree with the belief. And then if you like the belief, to maybe incorporate it into your spirit.
I wouldn't even say necessary. I mean, it manifests as agree or disagree, but it's more of like my whole aim is to see clearly. And and the idea of someone sharing their perspective gives us the ability to start to see things through their eyes. And the same example you used about solar returns, based on your perspective, that just doesn't make sense what they said. So it's not about agreeing or disagreeing with the belief. It's that doesn't make sense to me, right? And so for me, it's like, help it make sense to me. And if someone starts going off in something of just made up beliefs, then it's obvious to me that it doesn't make sense to them either. And it's a religious wound, right? Mm-hmm. And so I recognize where we are, and I'm like, okay, right? And I can appreciate why we all have a religious wound.
So, Jay-Z, what is your argument against evolution as a belief? Like, what do you think we're here to do in lieu of evolution?
Well, that's a tough one because why the premise of that is the premise of the question, what do you think we're here to do, is that we're here to do something.
Well, that's again, that's you defending against a point of view, because when I say evolution, that's not what I mean. I mean, if you just watch nature, there's a certain direction that nature moves, and I'm just calling whatever that nature is, I'm calling that evolution. And so it's not an assumed, it's just a recognition of somehow something got to where it is now, and it seems to be moving in some direction. And whatever that movement is, that's what we are labeling evolution.
So evolution is really just a label for change, and that we are always perceiving change in our environment.
But that change manifests in a specific direction. Right? It's like as a change, right? You were a little baby, right? Shit, you were just right? What do you say? Swimming around in your dad's nutsack, right? And then the cells mixed, and it's a predictable path of the way those cells move to create you to where you are right now.
Ricky's making a good point. I'm looking at evolution.
That's change in a specific direction.
Life is like a vector. I agree. And if you look at evolution in the dictionary, any process of formulation or growth / development, I would agree with Ricky here that whether or not you like it, you are growing and developing. That's actually factual.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I definitely agree with that too. And the direction in which the vector is pointing, I mean, is predictable in our kind of three-dimensional reality.
I don't think so.
But
I don't
unpredictable in a quantum reality.
I think it's somewhat predictable in 3 dimensions, somewhat. But even the somewhat is the predictability in the 4th dimension manifesting in this dimension.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
Well, I don't think a person grows from a 40-year-old into a baby. You could say that there are predictable elements to evolution. Like, we know that the foot will get bigger from the time that the baby's 3 to the time the baby's 6. Do we know whether or not the foot will get cut off? We don't know that. I mean, I'm just saying there are predictable and unpredictable elements to evolution.
Yeah, because even if it gets cut off in the 4th dimension, right, people still feel the phantom limb. It still exists.
Yeah,
it's still evolving.
So, I mean, maybe, we could say what we could ask a question, which is what parts of evolution are predictable, what parts are malleable, and how is that information useful?
Well, I think those are questions that we ask ourselves every single day. And it's because we can see, based on where we started and events that have come into our lives, we can trace the trajectory. And based on tracing the trajectory of how we got here, we can get some kind of sense of the trajectory of where we're headed. And I think going back and reviewing transits during major events in life, I think it's a powerful way to do this, because you start to see how certain planetary activations manifest in your life over a longitudinal time period, where you can see the evolution of the same expression. And a good example of this is going back to the late teens, early 20s, the first Uranus square. Because I like using Uranus, because Uranus is the planet that's closest to a lifespan, 84 years. Someone lives 84 years and croaks, we have a sense of they live the full life. Someone at 79, it's like, oh, right, almost. So 84 as this template of what it means to be human, right? And I define that as, right, to a certain extent, learning to think for ourselves, okay? Very much Uranus. And so if we trace that process, and something happens, the events in our lives around our early 20s, then we go to the next hard aspect, the Uranian opposition, and then we go to the next, we'll see a certain trajectory of events in our lives that are trying to urge us towards the human goal of learning to think for ourselves. And again, I think this is an easy example, especially us that have gotten past our Uranian opposition. Very, very useful.
Well, listening to you talk, Ricky, what I'm realizing is that I think astrology assumes maximal evolution. Actually, if you look at the ancient texts, their mega manifestation was the reason to learn astrology. So I think maybe, Jay-Z, we could say that the lens of astrology assumes that we can maximize growth or maximize evolution by kind of looking into the spiritual states of growth, not just the physical states of growth. Do you like that about astrology?
Yes, I do, and I agree that. Why are you laughing, Ricky?
Because I'm witnessing you like having this conversation, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
This idea of how to navigate belief systems and honor, and like it's just cool, and because we're actually doing it. And I think that, to me, the purpose of this podcast is to show people how to actually have these types of conversations. So, and we're doing it. So it's like it's like joyful celebration of the process.
Yeah, I really don't want to see you hyper villainized, Ricky, because I have always had a very pleasant time with you in 70 episodes of we've had the best time having high level intellectual discussions. You know what I mean? And I think holding space for in the intellectual sphere, sometimes there are disagreements. I love that space or container that sometimes we might get into it, and that's not abuse. That is I don't know what you call that is evolution, right? That is growth. Like they say,
but this is the point I was trying to make with Fern, and my only like sadness about that conversation, honestly, is that I wasn't able to make this point, because to me it was the point of the whole thing. All right, so exactly what you're saying, okay? And this is someone who's lived right past midlife, who with living to that point has the sun square Mars. So for you've had a lot of practice to have enough experience to be able to appreciate the value of Mars. And personally, in my chart, one of the strongest aspects, Venus conjunct Mars in Aries. And so for me, the people that I'm going to get along best with, the people who are going to be best able to appreciate me, is people who don't have an issue with Mars. Someone who has a Mars wound that's open and festered, I'm sorry. Okay, right? Stay away from me, please. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I read all these books on conflict theory when I was trying to figure out what to do with my Mars square, because I'm a beast, right? Well, what it said was, in real conflict is when growth occurs. Like, let's talk about evolution, right? That if that conflict is inevitable among humans, actually. I mean, I'm reading the Courage to be Disliked, Jay-Z, and I got to this chapter last night that in relating, like, every problem we have is interpersonal issues, right? It's like, in relating, you will have conflict points. But what these books said was, in those conflict points is when all this growth happens, if you so allow it. And I think, so it's like, I'm a friend to Mars. I'm not a conflictophile. I'm not like, oh, good, a conflict, but I'm like, oh, here we go, evolution. You know what I mean? So
yes.
I think some people get real bent out of shape when Mars moments occur. Ricky, I do have to know, did you feel bad when Fern cried?
No.
No, and why is that?
Because it's the same thing you said, right? One of the things that Mars, and I had this talk last night, one of the things to have a strong response to Mars is you have to be okay with pain and discomfort. Otherwise, you can't do Mars, right? You'll just cry. You'll just puddle.
Puddle. Well, I mean, and like in football, you came from a football background. It's like you guys, you probably experience pain in every battle, in every game.
Mm-hmm. And it's part of it. And right, we can go overboard, but we can't help but acknowledge that there is a way to honor Mars. And I think, in the way I think about it, is breakdowns to breakthroughs. It's kind of what you're saying. And and it's like a way to measure the quality of a relationship is, do our breakdowns turn into breakthroughs? Because that means we can handle Mars and we can grow because of it. But if the breakdowns just turn into more breakdowns and more wounds and going back and forth, right? That's not, we're not doing a good job with Mars, and we probably shouldn't be together.
Interesting. Well, you and Fern have your Mars opposed, and she has a Mars-Pluto conjunction. And to me, it was like, I didn't plan that. It just occurred. But I think we have to look at, okay, my producer Billy has his Mars opposed my Mars, and we both have Mars squared. And when we were trying to make our album, we had to make a conflict agreement because we would just go at it, right? And it's like, neither of us puddled. We just were like, oh hell no, and like then we would like back away from each other's auras, texting each other, and like and we would get through it. But I think it really depends. I think we're gonna have to look at the consent container of like people are gonna have to consent to come into a Mars.
Well, okay,
container.
listen. I understand in the world we live in that we have to be trauma informed. Okay, and for me, the most trauma informed is to be aware of what your trauma is and be aware of the situations that you put yourself in. And sometimes it's not possible because we're not aware of our trauma, but we do have the ability to gain an awareness of when our trauma response is starting to be activated. And when I say trauma, I think of Pluto in astrology, and I think of the long story for me of trauma is it's a necessary loss of innocence, you know, and it does take time to heal, and it's a process. And I think the best way to honor that process is to take care of ourselves. You know, I just find sometimes people get into a situation and they can't help themselves, but they keep making choices that create a situation that aggravates things that they're not prepared to deal with. Right?
Yeah, like if you're gonna poke the bear, then you're gonna have to deal with the bear. I mean, it is
Exactly.
yeah.
Like, and that's the reality of the situation, right? And because I happen to be the bear that's acting out the reality of the situation, if someone wants to villainize me, to me, that's their Mars wound. Hey, because the thing about me is I don't give a fuck. If an energy is up, I feel talking about a belief in astrology, I'm a belief person. And I think of myself as clergy, as call it a priest of astrology. And to me, when I was in India and I saw the priests and I didn't understand why they would sit there and they would repeat mantras all day. You know, and when you go into the temple, they're repeating mantras all day and they're cleaning the deity. It's because to me, my interpretation is they're trying to embody the energy of the deity because they were born with this more faith belief than most people, so they had a better ability to embody the energy of the god and radiate it. So for me, if I feel Mars coming through me, my I'm sorry, but my honor isn't towards protecting the person. My honor is to playing out Mars as cleanly and clearly as I possibly can.
Oh my god, I like sometimes I'm just like so okay. Like I had this student start yelling at me on Monday night at my in-person class, and she has a Mercury square Mars. And I did the calculation; I could feel her aura Marsing, and I was like, "Oh man, Sun's on a Mercury square Mars." And so I was just like, I fought with her for a little bit, and I was like, "Listen, I'm not gonna fight with you." Like, and but I was not like crying. I was not like bummed by her Mars. I was just like, "Oh, right on time." Like, no thanks on that right now. But like, I do think okay, but Jay-Z's a yogi, and so this is what's interesting about this is yogis would take Mars energy and try to neutralize it through yoga. Is that true?
I because you can maybe perhaps dissipate it or make it go away because it's not a thing anyway. Like, what's a Mars wound? What
you're talking about. So a Mars wound is when Mars is present, you don't have the ability to stay present. That's a Mars wound.
Oh, interesting.
So so I'm more on the side of Ricky where I do want to have the fight, whatever the fight is. I'm like, let's go on Mars. You know, I grew up with an Aries brother who has a Mars square Pluto, 18 months older than me, sitting across the table from me. Like I'm like, and he's a football player, and like all his football player friends are. My dad's a hockey player. My dad's terrifying. He has a Mars, Mercury, Moon, Jupiter T square. Like I grew up with Mars. You know what I mean? And so it's like when Mars happens, like I don't puddle. I'm just like, all right. Oh, you know, it's like I don't have that. Like let's dissipate Mars. Let's get rid of it. I do the fight. I do the battle. And I guess that's the question here is like, is it a wound to not be able to battle?
Well, there are different ways of battling, though. Wait, hold on. Let me interject here. Because there is like the Aikido way of combating somebody's Mars, right? Is you just swallow it into nothingness, right? That is a valid, like a Mars battle doesn't have to be a clash.
Okay, listen. If you have Mars in Pisces, what you're saying is a reality. But if someone has Mars in hard aspect in Aries, it does have to be a clash, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, no, right, right. I agree. For them, it would like that's how their Mars battles, and that's totally fine. And that's totally fine with me too. Like, yeah,
Do you
my
think a
Mars.
Mars in Pisces can win over a Mars in Aries in battle?
What do you
Well,
mean win?
but I think that's okay. Okay, come on, Mars. This is like Mars and Pisces. So one way that Stephen brings up Mars energy, right, is that there's two hungry dogs and one bone. Okay, that in the reality of our evolution, however we want to think about it, if we haven't had the ability to keep things from eating us, and we haven't had the ability to go get something to eat, we wouldn't have survived. Right?
Mhm.
So it's basic win of like survival of we have to win against life. That there are certain obstacles that come to us. If we can't find a way to overcome those obstacles, we ain't gonna survive. Okay, that's Mars. All right, it can show up in a lot of different ways, but that's one way to get to the heart of Mars.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to be an ass kicker, that's for sure. I mean, it's just like, yeah, like I will kick life's ass, but that's my Mars square sun for you. But like, but Jay-Z is an ass kicker, and so that's what's interesting about this. And he is a Pisces. He has 4 planets in Pisces, so you are
I
correct.
know. I can hear him.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but he
Well,
does have Mars in Scorpio though, and he's an Aries rising.
So, right, to me, this is the manifestation of a Mars wound, and I don't mean Mars wound is a negative thing. One of the
Mhm.
things that Mars rules is sharp objects, and sharp objects leave wounds. Okay, it's part
Well,
of the
he's
definition.
actually one of the most fierce kind of martial people, which is a hacker.
But that's what I'm
Hackers,
saying. But when we hack people up, and if we're human, right, it doesn't feel good. So we have Mars that creates a natural kind of ambivalence.
So JC, how often do you get in a real martial match?
Let's see. Well, I don't know. Like, I don't get into like, well, I've only gotten to a few fist fights, but not many. and that's the thing. Like, I mean, the whole wound thing is like, I just don't feel wounded ever.
Well, that's the whole point of the wound, right? We don't feel wounded. That's how the wound affects us.
Well, I have to think about
I
it.
do think the culture at large has a Mars wound, and I'll tell you what it is, which is
Thank you.
people always fight. Like, if you're going to be a spiritual person, you have to fight for world peace. And I'm like, okay, can someone look at the reality of the situation that there have been protests and Spartans and gladiators for all of time, that the gods or creation itself has made it martial individuals, and then we try to erase them. Like, oh, peace, 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 peace. I'm like, that's a Mars wound of like, why can we not accept and work with Mars? I'm over here reading the New Philosopher magazine on conflict. Like, I'm not trying to like deny the Mars veil. You know, it's like that's what irritates me, you know?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I guess maybe my question is like, is there just a Mars wound? Like, is there a Mercury wound? Is there a Venus wound? Like,
Of
I don't
course.
get
Of
the
course.
whole wound thing.
So
Also,
I
I don't
understand.
get trauma, kind of. So,
But of course you don't, right? Of course, I get it. I get it. So to me, when I say wound, it's purposely meant to bring up stuff for people,
mhm.
right? And so the nature of wound is it brings people's wounds to the surface. And when I say wound, it's not a negative thing. It's just if you have, and this is a belief system, right? That in some dimension we are whole. Okay, and the parts of us that don't realize that's what I'm calling the wound.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you. Like, people want to erase Mars energy, and I'm like, you're taking out the whole human. Let's imagine a life without Mars. Okay, you have no backbone. Like, you know, it's like I call it like hashtag backboning. It's like
There would be no life because we'd all be gobbled, we'd all be trampled to death. There would be no life without
That's
Mars.
true. Now, does your wife have equal Mars to you?
Hers, yeah, she's got a strong Mars and it's square my Mars, and she's South Node and Aries. Yeah, she's hardcore Mars, and that's why it works. You know, she grew up in a Marsy environment, and so when my Mars flares, it's almost like she doesn't even notice Yeah, I think of Mars for a Mars relationship to work is you have to give someone permission to light a fire under your ass. You know,
Interesting.
and if you have that permission, right, then it works. But if you say I'm going to get defensive, if you right, I'm going to get defensive if you cross the line, okay, right? For me, I'm like, if that's the case, we can't be in relationship.
Well, you know
Bye.
what's interesting? My brother brought this concept to me because he's super martial, right? And it's like he was like, "There's some peace that comes with you when you know the person next to you can kill you." And you like acknowledge it where you're just like, all right, I'm just going to be peacefully like getting along with this person. It's like what I like is when people understand how fierce us Mars people are to the point where they don't really poke the bear unless they want to get poked back. Like, and then
You
there's
got
peace
it.
all of a sudden, like just
Yeah.
like you know.
Yeah. I say the ultimate Mars skill is learning to show your teeth. You know, like animals perfected this. You know.
We always call it at my house. We call it "fuck with me and find out." Like it's like people are always like, "Dude, I'm super nice. I'm actually the nicest person ever." But then when someone starts to mess with me, I'm just like,
So
"Oops."
good.
But
So
I mean,
good.
I don't really attack. I'm not like an attack animal. I have Mars and Cancer. I'm like a defender. You know, it's like in Magic the Gathering, I'd be like a 1/7. Like I'm a huge defense animal, but I don't really attack. You know, but it is
Yeah.
mess with me and find out is showing your teeth. You know.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes with my wife, she'll start to go there, and I'll look at her and I'll be like, "Really? Do you really want to do this?" And then we'll kind of laugh. So
Yeah. Well, so, but Jay Z, okay, not to poke at you a little bit, but I think your Mars attack is leaving.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
And what do we say about the people? Okay, like there's the people who are willing to fight. This episode totally morphed into a Mars episode.
Yeah.
But then there's like the leaving element. Like, how harsh of an attack is a leave? That perhaps
when
might
I
be
hear
valid
that,
after all.
when I hear that, I mean, it can manifest other ways, but the phrase that comes in my head is, "He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day."
Oh, that's why Jay Z still. But how come you're not afraid of Ricky if he's so martial?
Because Ricky can't hurt me. I mean, you know, you know,
He can.
because because we because I think the three people in this room know our charts. I mean, you've already said like a couple things, right? One is like I have a Cancer moon and people who should walk around eggshells with people on Cancer moons. Another is like I have an active Mars, so if you don't like my active Mars, then like we shouldn't get along. Like if I like and the same thing me. Like I know I have 4 planets in Pisces. I know I have an Aries rising and a Mars in Scorpio in the 8th house, right? Like I know these things about me too, and it's like it's the Course in Miracles lesson, Andy, that we had a few weeks ago. That's like if I defend myself, I am attacked. Like
Oh
Ricky's
yeah.
attacking me. I didn't say like, Ricky, why are you laughing at me? I'm like, Ricky was laughing joyfully, and I thought it was funny too, and I wanted to know why he was laughing. Like,
So you didn't come on with a defense setting. You came on with an open heart chakra, just kind of spinning, right? Like, but there is that idea, like when you start to defend yourself, that turns whatever's happening to you into an attack. That is true. Um, Wait, Ricky, have you ever played Magic the Gathering? Oh my
I
god,
don't
it's a
think so.
battle game. Okay, so my stance after the whole episode with Fern, which a lot of people found horrifying.
Oh,
I'm a
good.
I'm a Ricky. I mean, poor Fern, dude. That people are mad at you because they think you hurt Fern's feelings.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, what I will say about this as a Magic the Gathering player is we believe that animals of all size can battle all other animals of all sizes. So, for example, there's this idea that a toxic masculinity feature happened in that episode. But what I know is a tiny spider can kill an elephant because it's full of venom, right? A female can kill a male Absolutely. There's all kinds of tactics. So like I don't necessarily take the idea that the female is the weaker person in the room, and I feel like I don't think Fern is weak. I think she's strong.
So to me, like especially if we're doing something like this that's affecting other people, I've realized that it's not personal. That there's certain events that occurred that brought things to the surface for people, and I think what it's bringing to the surface is everyone's Mars wound.
Hmm.
And again, I don't mind being the villain. I don't mind being the bad guy. To me, this is a harmonious expression of Mars Pluto. I don't have to defend anything. I'm not going to apologize. There is a certain energy that was there, and I honestly feel like I was able to meet the moment. And if people are willing to go to a certain place with a certain person, this is Mars. There's going to be consequences. I'm going to tell you, when I step on the football field, I know, right, that when they snap the ball, that the guys are coming to get me. And so I'm not going to put myself in that situation if that's the case. And if someone goes back and they watch the game on repeat, right? And it is funny because people didn't see the backstory, but when we first got on, when I came on, the first words that Andy was saying is describing me as a beast, right? So, and then the conversation went into walking on eggshells. And for me, Cancer Moon, okay, the thing that is most valuable and important to me is vulnerability. And we've gotten to this point in multiple shows where Andy brings a woman on, and there's a certain point where I say something, Mars comes out, and there's a point of vulnerability. And every single time up until Fern, the woman said, "Oh, I'm curious. Huh? I'm curious. Huh?" Right? It went to a place of vulnerability. Okay? And wonderful. And this time it went to a place of defense. And then the defense kept coming back again and again and again and again. And again, if two Mars people are going and your thing is I need to dominate you and get you to back down or accept that you're wrong, right? That's coming at someone, and that's gonna create a certain kind of response from people. And what I was pointing out, and I know I don't have any doubt that I was wrong, is that's a pattern in her life. And it's only going to manifest. This is what Mars does. It brings things to the surface. And so it's going to manifest when on a Mars activation, or you interact with someone whose Mars opposes your Mars, all of your Mars stuff is going to come to the surface. You're going to be in the ring, and we're going to see how do you really fare when you're in the ring, right? And so you can't blame someone for being in the ring with someone, and that's what happens. And
well, again, I think that's why for this show we're going to create a container where people know it could be a ring or it could be a round table, depending on the conversation. Because
it's not depending on the conversation; it's depending on their vulnerability.
Okay. Well, I do think because you have a strong Mars, and we love that about you. I love that about you. So it's like I want us to be able to have a consensual container for all people to consent to engage, right? Because it's like I love that part of this show, and it's like I don't want to lose that. And so she just didn't know what she was getting into, and I am sorry for her in that case, But
okay, but to me, again, the thing that I live for, and I told you I'd die for this shit. The thing that I live for, the truth that I believe in, is the only way is the willingness to be vulnerable and to be real. Mm-hmm. Again, I'll die for that shit. So I would say, if you're not comfortable being vulnerable, don't come on the show because it ain't gonna go well for you.
Interesting. Okay, so that's what you're looking for is vulnerability. Now, I mean, we're just learning. This is this is open process, real life TV. Like we are not faking or staging anything, and so we're just we're learning who you are, what makes for a good thing. I'm going to still maintain that your Marses were opposed, and that was just alchemy. Like that was just that was just what happened.
Listen, I live with someone who has Mars square with, so I don't know, right? Yeah, it can be navigated if both. Your Mars, it can be navigated if someone is willing to do the dance. If someone has a good relationship with Mars, it don't matter what the aspect is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, what a wild month it's been. I had to pull on my producer pants and really do the work of it. But no, I do think I want to have our head producer on the show with you in a few weeks if I can get him. He travels a lot, but if I can get him on, I would love to just have you meet him. And he's a metal music producer, and so like metal is not shy of Mars. Like those guys are extreme Mars animals, and he has Mars and Capricorn rising, and it's like so. I think it would be. I think we want to really be able to make this the best show ever. Yeah, I know
We
Billy
should
and
call it the Lions. We should call it the Lions Den, or
the Lions. Okay, you want something like that? Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm just saying, right? It's something that it's honoring. 'Cause I think both you
Well,
and
isn't there
I.
shark? Sorry.
Well, I think you and I like honor Mars, and the other insight that I had is back to your Sun Mars square. Is I believe that the Sun, especially in a women's chart, gives information about experiences that come through men, so that women with Sun Mars activate or aspects in their chart are going to have Marsy type men in their lives. So over time they learn how to handle them. Right, case in point. But also, when you're around a man, you're gonna make that man more Marsy. Yeah, and so because I noticed, like, I do have a strong Mars, but there's something about 2 o'clock on Wednesdays that my Mars, right, when we're interacting, that my Mars feels comfortable, feels safe, and feels like it actually has free reign to express itself. And for that, you are a gift to me, Andy.
Oh, you're a gift to me, honestly.
All right. Well, now I have a question. What is a woman and man? How does that
The moon,
play?
the moon, the moon, the moon. All right, and it's not me just saying this. Is you can look at your own life and it's look at your moon, Cancer moon, and look at the strongest aspects to your moon, and look at the women that have had a powerful effect in your life, and see what connections you make between those.
Well, so what's your question, JZ? Is it like, do you think men and women are equal? What is the question about men and women?
I don't. I don't know that it's like this is very scientific to say women are like this, men are like this. I don't have the same perspective on gender, I'm sure, that either of you have.
I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about men are born with the ability to impregnate a woman, and most women are born with the ability to be impregnated and give birth to a child. And so I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about that the sun represents the nature of the sun is it radiates outwards. The nature of the moon is that it's reflective. So I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about plus minus. I'm talking about electricity.
It's like biological sex.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to the men are outies, women are innies thing.
I'm not talking about behavior. I'm talking about biology. That if a man wanted to get pregnant, good luck. If a woman wanted to impregnate someone, good luck. That's all.
Well, I think a gender and astrology show is like a whole nother debate we could get into. But I do think. I do think there has been some commentary that's saying that you are harder on females than males. Do you think that's just that they are less friend to Mars?
Yes, 100%.
So
because if I'm representing Mars, right, then the nature of the interaction is going to be based on their relationship to Mars.
Mm. Yeah, like I think I'm a very odd female because I am so martial. Like it's like I'm like kind of like a tomboy femme tough chick something. So I do.
But also men typically don't have man wounds and women do. So it triggers a certain kind of response. See, people don't understand that, right? In the Mars dynamic, there has to be something that triggers the Mars. And it's what you said when you're around Mars people, and it's kind of the walking on eggshell conversation, is you have to recognize where crossing the line is and where crossing the line is not. And it's another way of saying if someone is passionate about something, they can't help that something arises passion in them. We can learn how to express that passion. We can find a place to put it. But this is the nature of what Mars means. and we all have to find a way to live with it. And when
Maybe
we
we
can't live with it in ourselves, we trigger it, and it comes to us through other people.
We should call this the Mars Hour or
I like
something.
it.
But
Yeah.
it is the Ricky Williams show, but it is kind of the Mars Hour.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, well, we have one more minute. Anyone else have anything on their mind? This is a weird deconstruction episode. I think we're just trying to figure out what to do going forward as far as like what's what, and I think just little tweaks here and there, but not much. Not much is going to change.
Well, we know what's what is that we're not gonna shy away from Mars. Okay? Is our goal is to help heal the Mars wound.
Okay, we could call this Heal the Mars Moon Hour. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for coming on. It's great to see you, Ricky. Great to see you, Jesse. Jesse, I'll see you in 15 minutes.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Alrighty, bye.